Is policy. We're starting our committee meetings this evening with policy. Today's December 10th. Present at the meeting is Dr. Critelli. Yep. Dr. Higgins from the high school. Dr. Lehman, Dr. Chanley, Ms. Ratner, Dr. Peck, Mr. Zeichner, and Mrs. Fabiano. We all have a short agenda today. We have 2 items. We're going to start with regulation number 5440, honoring pupil achievement. This policy has been brought forth to the committee because we would like to align this policy with the current practices that are taking place. All right, I don't know if one of you would like to elaborate a little bit further on it.
So this was a topic that was brought to my attention over the summer, and in speaking with Dr. Lehman and Dr. Chanley, we wanted to bring this to this committee to discuss what's written in the regulation as compared to what the practice is at the high school. Specifically in regulation 5440, there is a caveat for principals list. And in that caveat, it states that any student, normally to get into a principals list, you would have to have, your student would have to have a 90 or above in all of your classes. There is a section in here that says, if a student has one grade of 85 to 90 in an honors class, that would also qualify the student to be on the principals list. That has not been the practice at the high school. Dr. Critelli, who has been in this position for a number of years, recently discovered that the practice changed around 2008. What we believe happened was when the regulation was updated in 2008, that was supposed to be removed, and it never was. So we believe that the regulation is actually in error. And the practice that changed at the time through our, we could tell through our program of studies when it actually changed, was to remove that 85, change the practice, but for some reason, we don't know why, the regulation never changed. So since 2008, 2009, any student that has been on the principals list at the high school has had a 90 or above, and that's it. In doing my research and calling around to some of my co-principals in Middlesex County, it seems that every school that I've talked to, whatever their high honors is, whether it's high honor roll or principals list, are all 90 or above. There is some discussion about the possibility of an honors class, because they get a GPA bump, would be affected by that. We would counter that discussion or counter that argument with the fact that we don't actually incorporate those bumps in GPA until they're a senior anyway. So there should be no recognition of that 8-point or 10-point bump for honors or AP. Additionally, the regulation does not indicate anything for an AP class, only for an honors class. This, again, is a reason why we think that this is an error in the regulation, and or just something that was never taken out when the update happened. So my request, after having this conversation and realizing this error, my request to Dr. Chanley and Dr. Lehman was to ask the board to remove that number 2 under principals list to have the regulation conform more to what our practice has been.
Just page 2 of 4.
Okay.
And,
That's in a nutshell. That's really the story.
and that is our recommendation. So, and I've been here since 2003, so I do recall as well, I know Dr. Lehman, we had this conversation in detail. And if there had been any fluctuation in the practice, then I would say it's probably a conversation we need to maybe entertain, but there has been no fluctuation. Since 2008, it's been a 90, it's always been a 90, and basically the policy then really should match the practice. And I do agree that principals list is and should be a big deal, for lack of, in layman's terms, it should be honorary and a big deal, and 90 is an appropriate rating.
Well, it looks like the high school is able to track back the change. So their program of studies historically had it as an 85. The policy update in 2008 then led to the change in the
Program of studies.
in
But
2009.
this wasn't removed.
But it looks like none of us were here in
No,
2000.
05, this was updated in 08, and then the program of studies was updated again.
So I think everything else would remain
Program six
solid.
Updated to reflect whatever the
The
combination.
policy in 2008.
Genesis was updated also, so that.
So everything is appropriate and in alignment, with the exception of 2 being in there, it should be removed, and then you can move 3 to 2, 4 to 3, and everything else stays. There's no other issues in the policy.
I have just one question. What happens if there's a family that noticed that this was in writing in our policy and is asking us to adhere to it? You know, being that this is a policy that we have in place.
So that has happened. The response that I had given at the time was that the practice of the high school has always been, I said always, probably in my time or my knowledge, and in speaking with Dr. Catelli, that it was always a 90 or above, which then sparked this conversation. So we would not change our practice. That's why we're asking the board to
Align.
that regulation.
I guess if they wanted to, what's the word? Not wait, help me.
Mediate or compromise?
No, when they go above you, they want to put it in.
Appeal?
What is it?
Escalate.
Thank you. Excuse me, public, I couldn't think of the word. Today, right? We had one of those days. Yes, so if they wanted to appeal it, then they could appeal it to Dr. Lehman, and then he would have to make a decision, and then if they didn't like his decision, they would appeal to me, and I have to make my decision. And I do agree that policy is very important. We have to respect policy. It is our governing body. That being said, if we have always maintained the practice through Genesis, which is our online student management system, computerized, that does it for us. And I think the other key, and you said this, I don't know if anybody realized this, well, you said it. If we were going to say that it is more rigorous class, why aren't we doing that for AP as well? So therefore, you could see it's an anomaly that was an error, because otherwise you would have AP/honors class. So that would be my expense. So no one has come to me to appeal. I believe every circumstance should be looked at in its own value. But if someone just blanketly asked me the question, the answer would be that we would maintain the 90, because that's what we've always done.
Does anybody have questions?
So
Mr. Zeichman?
can I assume that the term academic distinction will come off?
What number?
It says number 2, pupils in grades 9 through 12 who have achieved academic.
No, it's wrong. You're in the wrong area. It's A, principals list 1, number 2.
Page 2 of 4.
Okay.
Go up on page 2 and number 2, 3 to 85 or better, that's.
Oh, no, I'm not referring to that. What I'm referring to has to deal strictly with the high school.
The term academic.
Yeah, within it says pupils in grades 9 through 12
Where are you?
who have achieved academic
I see it.
Page 1,
distinction. That's A1.
A2.
Okay, I would assume that's gonna come off.
So no,
Because
that,
academic distinction.
that's labeled under,
Leaves open a lot of possibilities.
well,
No,
that
no,
would be an additional discussion. That's not what I'm requesting. What you're speaking of falls under the honor rolls,
Yeah.
A.
Right.
What I'm talking
What
about
is
is
that?
under principals list, which I guess, falls under that subsection of honor rolls.
It's the honor rolls for the next level.
So if you,
I'm just looking for continuity, that's all.
No, the
So look
academic,
at that, see number 2, and then I go to the second page. And I know that's what you're looking for within the high school and throughout the entire district is continuity, because I did a form up together so I could look at it from that perspective. So I wasn't sure, and that was my question.
so if I may, I think, the section that you're speaking of, A2, under honor rolls, which is, an overarching section.
Right.
What it is describing there is that there are two lists, all right, for lack of a better term, at the high school that shows academic distinction, one being an honor roll list and one being a principal list. What we're discussing is the principal list, which would be considered the higher of the 2 lists, the higher of the 2 honors.
That's my next question.
So that higher of the 2 honors would be 90 or above for all grades. In that mark, do we do marking periods? Mark, in that marking.
Yeah, I think we should look at that though, just because it's not clear until they move on to the next item. Not when I look at
Well, it
it,
says,
looking
it
at.
does,
It's
it
under honor roll.
says will be listed on honor roll. at the end of the school year for A2 under honor rolls. Pupils in grades 9 through 12 who have achieved academic.
Yeah, I read, I didn't see.
Will be listed on honor roll, so it's distinguishing between principals listed on honor roll.
Okay. It's just that we're placed, and then when we move up, it's just not, it wasn't clear, at least it wasn't clear to me, where it is currently placed. I'm just suggesting maybe a movement would be in our best interest in terms of a policy. That's the only thing I'm suggesting.
Any other
We
questions?
can, maybe we just list it, if I may, maybe we list what you're saying in both places. It's an academic extinction, it's an academic extinction for honor roll, and it's also an academic extinction for principals list. So that perhaps we use what you're saying and put it in both places. Why remove it? It is an academic extinction. But I understand, because you're almost saying, well, is an academic extinction only for honor roll, but where is it for the, I hear you. I think that might be a good idea.
So what you're saying
Then
is
just repeat it.
this
I mean, you
line,
got it.
Because I understand what you're saying, you're delineating the honor roll, and then you're delineating the other. Just repeat it twice so people know it's an academic extinction of both.
Yeah, so it relates to.
It
relates to both.
Particular
Right.
board.
Makes sense. It's an
That's
easy
all
fix.
I'm suggesting.
so it would become principals list item. Well, we're gonna take.
It'll
out
be number
2.
4, because if you
So
move
it'll
3,
be-
so it'll still be a number 4, but you won't have a number 2.
Yeah. Ms.
Or
Radley,
you
do
could
you have a
just say,
question?
don't bother with number 2 and just do it in that other section. You just, you know, it's-
Oh, that's true too.
Yeah, we
you
know.
just try to see it that way. So you know, when they first.
Yes,
they'll know
put it number 2,
what it's
sure.
referring to.
Yeah, right, because in other words, it's directly under it. So you're talking about it, and then you say it's an academic extinction, and then you say the honor rolls will be prepared by the director of guidance, and each principal will display it. Makes sense.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions, or just clarification.
I'm gonna have to excuse myself because he's stuck. My son,
Okay.
just stalled. No, we'll be fine. He's gonna put the blade. What's all of
Dr. Shanley, really quick,
Oh, okay.
just because this, you would probably know
Okay.
this well. When, this isn't with what we're talking about, but just because we're looking at it, when did the 6th grade move to the middle school?
2011?
Okay, because I did notice the very first part of the regulation talks about pupils in grades 5 to 6. And so I'm wondering if.
No, we need to change 5 to 6 to 8.
Okay,
Yeah, 5th is incorrect.
So where are we changing?
So if you go to page
A
1
1.
of 4, to be eligible for the honor roll, pupils in grades 6 to 8 must achieve an honor roll average of 85% of all courses taken during the regular school day.
So it's not, no longer fifth?
Yeah, it hasn't been 5th grade in forever.
And now here,
5th grade still does get notified.
Well,
We don't, well, it doesn't affect us though.
if you look at A1, it talks about pupils in grades 5 to 6.
So basically, I think anywhere that says grade 5.
We change it to
grade
6.
5 needs to come out and it should be 6.
Now, they can be acknowledged with distinction in the elementary school by the elementary principals, but it wouldn't have any effect or relationship in the middle school.
Well, I think Ms. Recker's point is that in the current
Yes.
regulations, grades 7 and 8 are not noted in it.
It's noted under honor roll on the bottom of page
It's
1,
noted
but on the
here.
top of page 1.
Yeah, I have
grade,
it.
but not here.
So I don't know if we're giving
This says
the
5 to
criteria
6 over.
for elementary school
I don't
in
know why that's
A1
even up
that we
there.
want to modify.
Let's ask an elementary principal. Dr. Wayman, when you were in the upper elementary, and how did you do it? So you could say, so is this pertaining, I kind of agree with what he's saying, it's structured off. It
Yeah.
makes you feel like, what are you talking about? We should have one section for elementary, one section for middle, and one section for high school. I agree. Maybe it needs to be
We need to
allocated.
alter it.
Yes, I agree.
Seven reads might smooth in certain areas.
But no, you wouldn't put 5, but then it sounds like it's matched together as a separate honor roll completely.
Right, my thought was that maybe we had one for the upper elementary school there, and then when the 6th grade moved.
Yes, we
the
did.
policy, the regulation.
So let me ask you, so grade 5 still gets acknowledgement of honor roll?
Yeah.
By itself?
And grade 4.
So then what we probably need to do is probably need to have honor roll in grades 5.
And
Who
fourth
distinguished
is
themselves?
saying,
4th grade does not.
no, fourth
Oh,
grade.
so in grades 5, and then we talk about in grades 6 to 8, and then we talk about grades in high school, and they all get academic extinction. You know what I just said?
Okay.
It's distinct, we're extinction, huh? Distinction.
And then my other question was just to clarify for honor roll, it mentions in grades 5 to 8 that they have to have an overall average of 85%. And one course can be a grade in the 75% to 79%. To my knowledge, just from my own personal experience, I thought that all of the classes, that at least how I've seen it done,
Yeah,
have to be,
That's not how it is.
yeah, they have to be at that
They
grade
have
now.
to, they have to be 80 or above.
80 or above in all grades. This is old. Right.
So we need
This
to
is really
really,
old,
we
yeah.
need more time for this.
Yeah, so what we can do is, if we take one more time to even before we go to a first reading, we can get all of our ducks in a row, like, I didn't realize that.
The
We can
format.
change the format,
Yeah.
change the verbiage, put in what was commented here by all of the board members, which makes sense, and we're gonna lay it out a little bit differently. We'll have fifth grade, 6 through 8, high school, and then wherever it pertains to, I think that makes the most sense, I agree
So
100%.
let's say we have to get the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and which won't be a problem at all.
And then just,
Simple matrix.
Dr. Higgins, the
I'm
national,
gonna excuse myself.
the National Honor Society portion, has that changed the guidelines since this was last reviewed? Because I'm wondering if it makes sense to eliminate what's specifically listed there, because it also says that we follow what the National Honor Society states. So I don't know.
So yes, I think that's broad enough to any changes that we have made, has not been affected by this regulation, because we do follow the National Honor Society guidelines, even though their guidelines are that we have to have our own bylaws. So
Okay.
our bylaws are based on their guidelines, but they're ours alone.
So what's under number 1 at the bottom of page 2 is still what we do.
I don't have the same pages as you do.
Oh, okay.
So are you looking at C, National Honor Society?
The National Honor Society.
Okay. Yes. Yes, that is what we do
Okay.
with the juniors after the first semester and seniors after the first marking period.
Okay,
Yes.
sounds good.
All right, let's move on to the second item
Sure.
and second and last item on the agenda, which is the acceptable use of generative artificial intelligence. I have trouble. Okay, do we need to read the whole policy out loud?
I'll give some highlights if you want. And then if you guys want to ask questions, again, we can revisit this. This is another one we can bring back again.
Yes.
But we need to get something down. At least we thought at a district level, we needed to get something down.
Okay,
I know that the board, I think, is in the same thought. So back in July, Strauss Esme released, I guess the best way to describe it, they typically give us a really strong policy connected to, a code and law and things. They basically gave us some sentence starters, is the way I describe it. So then what we started to do, and then I know several board members also started to kind of look out and see what other districts have in terms of their AI policies. In our research, we've noticed that there are many, probably the majority of school districts around us that still have not adopted an AI policy. But again, cycling back to us, I think we need to get at least a starter down on paper and approved for us to define like a core set of expectations. So this policy is kind of drawn from several districts that have gone and adopted the policy. So a lot of this work really is kind of picking off the things that we felt were appropriate for Monroe Township. And I looked at the development of this through a couple different lenses, and you can kind of see the way it's divided. There's a district piece, and there's a student and staff piece to it. So there's kind of 3 sections to it. And then there's a few lenses we took a look at. You have a student privacy lens, a staff privacy lens. There's an expectation of education in there. There's also an expectation of accepting that this is happening around us. So we're going to adapt and utilize this as we do. One thing to think about is I feel like this will evolve eventually, maybe kind of like our return to school policy coming out of COVID, where it doesn't exist anymore.
yeah,
But it does exist, that return to school policy, because a lot of the things that were in there are now embedded in other policies or other processes and procedures we have.
mhm,
For example, we don't have policy on our search tools, like our web search tools. We don't have a policy on how students use digital research tools and things. So right now we'll lay the groundwork, and then we can evolve this and tweak this as we need to go. So the first page here is really just defining terms. That comes directly from Strauss Esme. The second page is what I would consider the district, kind of the overarching piece there. And again, you can kind of see it has those highlights of data privacy and security. So all AI systems and tools must respect that. All AI systems and tools must align with the district collective vision for high quality instruction. these are like the high standards we're setting, right? The AI tools and systems have to be monitorable on our side, from a student learning perspective. Safeguards have to be in place and they're essential when we identify or use tools that we can monitor and limit bias and things. The fifth one here is the use of AI systems and tools by students, teachers, and professional staff must account for the context of teaching and learning and must work well in educational practice. Again, we're not going to take AI and squeeze it in somewhere where it doesn't fit, right? This is just a naturally evolving thing we're interacting with. And then another overarching piece is the use of AI systems and tools must be safe and effective for students. AI system tools must include anti-discrimination practices, protect data privacy, provide notice and explanations, and provide resources to human users when problems arise. Again, from a district perspective, any technological tool that we interact with has to meet a certain threshold and standard for student, staff, data privacy. That's everything from our Microsoft logins. They all have an umbrella expectation and threshold that they meet, all the way down to Edmonton products, Study Island and things. We wouldn't interact with a business or a product or an entity that if we put information in, we were afraid that that information would be violated or shared or something like that. The next section is students. This defines as a student some of the interactions they may have. And it basically says when assignments permit the use of AI for explanations of concepts, make sure you verify those concepts. AI is not a primary source, and that's a common understanding across the board. It's not going to a core reference and using that. So AI is learning from its environment, and it's not a primary source. When students are permitted, we kind of define this in a few different ways here, because the operational information we're going to give to the teachers and the students is going to be a scale of use. So picture you get a homework assignment. You can't use it. You can use it for idea generation. You can use it for editing, or you can use it all throughout. So we will define expectations for student use, and we kind of work those expectations into 2 and 3 here. So when an assignment permits the consultation of AI for ideas, right? Essay ideas and feedback. Make sure that there's enough difference between what you got out of AI and what you're turning in as your own, right? It's academic integrity, plagiarism. Students should not upload any input personal information. That's a teachable piece. As we expose students to this or they start using it, we have to make sure they understand that they're not typing their name and their address and their phone number and their social security number and their friends' information in there. Not that we think they would do that, but even if you take a chart of information and copy and paste it into AI, you may not think that the reason you're putting in there is to get information about a student or something. You want a different looking chart or something like that. The fact that that personal information is input in there is a concern. So we want to make sure we have expectations that they're not doing things like that. The fourth bullet is really about citations, so make sure you cite. The fifth one is academic integrity. So students' essays and other writing assignments should be, could be scrutinized with AI detection software. So some of the things that we have in place, like Microsoft Word has like the automatic spell check.
Mhm.
Some of the things that we are acquiring are beginning to have AI detection as a part of that. So
Okay.
one thing that's extremely notable, and it's connected to the last section of the number 10 for the teachers, and it goes along with number 5 for the students, is if there's something flagged by an AI detection software, that is not the only source that we would look for academic integrity violations. So that would be a flag for us to dig deeper and have a conversation with the student, and that's outlined in number 10. When we look at revision histories in Google, we look at revision histories in Microsoft, there's ways to look and see if things were generally copy and pasted over. There's an investigation and a conversation that can happen with the student. It's not just going to be an AI detection software tells me that this is AI and it's done and you get a 0. There's a lot more that would be taken into account.
That's good because I have heard that sometimes Grammarly is picked up as AI.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, we're gonna run out of time.
And you guys use Grammarly, right?
No.
No,
you-
turn it in.
You use Turn it in.
Yep, so Turnitin has AI software, detection software embedded in,
Okay.
so,
The last page is there.
yeah, the last page is staff, and it goes through a similar process. The first one's academic integrity, the second one is citations for any of the work that they're providing us as a district, not passing it off as their own. 3 is verifying the sources, 4 is data privacy, 5 is more data
Data
privacy.
privacy.
The other ones are educating students about over-reliance on AI, how to use it properly, evaluating the use on a case-by-case basis. Number 8 is a communication. So if there's something as AI evolves in a classroom that is coming to fruition, and they want to use AI in that vein, just like any other technologies process or software we have, we need to run through our screening process, which we take a look at all the data privacy issues and things that they have, and they should have on their back end. So that's the same expectation we have with anything else they do technology-wise. And then I highlighted 10 was where we expect them to have a conversation. So the core of this is, this lays out expectations. The practical piece of this is we have professional development that staff is already attending. We have an intro to AI. We've had, started last year, we probably have 100 staff that have already signed up, have already taken it. We have 5 more courses scheduled for the rest of this year. We have cohorts of staff through our title funding, our title grant funding, going out to Rutgers, going out to professional development throughout the state. So we're doing some groundwork, and then when everybody comes back, we will start flipping this out with our guidance and our scale of use, so we can teach the teachers, and we can teach the teachers how to teach the students. But this is I guess, the beginning of laying the expectation.
Do you have a timeline as to when you want the policy in place?
I would say we had a brief discussion now. I'm sure it may come up in curriculum, or we may come up as discussion in the board
It's a
meeting.
work in progress.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna run this by the attorney as well, and his feedback.
Okay.
But like a group of principals is looking at it tomorrow at their principals meeting.
So maybe in
great.
January, we bring it back
So
again.
I'm thinking we should have something better in January, and then that also, we're rolling it out, we're creating the guidance, like I said, in parallel to this. But this is the first look, this is your guys, we'll take feedback from, parent perspective and things like that, a community perspective.
All right, any questions?
Good
So-
start.
So both of these are going back to committee. None of them are going. to-
Correct.
Yep.
Right, and what we're gonna do is, whether myself, Dr. Lehman, we do it together, it's very simple, we'll just reach out to our upper elementary principals, we have 3 of them, we'll reach out to our middle school principal. We know what's going on with our high school, and then we'll see what's the best way to format, so it is consistent, the language and the verbiage is consistent for the 5th, 6th through 8th, and high school, and then, maybe there's one paragraph at the end that talks about the academic distinction, instead of having it as part of A, which is what you were looking at, we just have it at the very end of the document, or the very beginning of the document. So that's not gonna be a problem, I already wrote myself some notes, so this is something that we'll revisit back in January.
Okay.
I think that makes sense, both policies.
All right, so.
They're pretty good, you.
There's no other questions. This concludes the policy committee meeting for the month of
Thank
December.
you.
Thank you. So I think